We now resume this session with a talk by Professor Ravindra. He has been the former head of the Department of Architecture UVCE, Bangalore University. He has over 38 years of academic experience and has taught at Architecture Department of MIT, Manipal and MCE Hassan. He has taught city planning, planning legislature, history of architecture and theory of design. He has chaired academic and professional bodies. He is deeply interested in the development of academic standards and design professions. I kindly invite you, sir. Welcome, sir.
Because they can hurt themselves and they cannot manage. They are not sufficiently grown enough to understand what the cause and effect relationships. If you do something, what happens? They are not still able to differentiate them. Hence, some elder people need to be there along with them to supervise. So these preschoolers, you find in the first few years of the school, naturally the space that they need is quite less. They need supervision and they react emotionally. They react emotionally than logically. That is why you see they keep on forcing on something, even if we tell them that it's not correct. So that sense of logic would not have developed. Hence, you have to cater to those emotional aspects in design. So and the idea of self is not yet strongly developed. Above 6 years and up to 9 years, up to 9 years, that better verbal, numerical, and spatial skills develop. That means spatial means negotiation skills. They can understand the forms, the levels to a larger extent. Hence, they can be given credence when in design. That means it reflects. Usually, what is the outcome of this? We try to locate all the areas dealing with smaller children up to 6 years at ground level only. And it has to be quite small. We mentioned in the last. Means it has to be a cozy environment where they don't, the scale is not oppressive. The scale is not intimidating. So naturally, they're bound to be usually floor bound as well as at the ground level only. Up to 12 years, they can go up to first floor and not preferably above that. Because there's going to be jostling and pulling and pushing each other. It's going to be quite detrimental for that age group of children. So naturally, you will find them preferably you would like to provide them at the ground level only, or even slightly below the ground level, maybe some half a meter below the ground, not even half a meter, less than that, 60 centimeters, let us say. Up to below the ground level, they can easily negotiate. That is the indication of this. Then we go to location. We go fast. Location naturally is close to home, within walking distance, within 10 minutes. Okay, how much can an average person cover a mile within what time? Usually about 20 minutes. At 4 kilometers of that speed, normally if you pace it properly, you can cover a mile in about 20 minutes. So when we talk of, this was taken care of when I talk of the neighborhood principle, that a child should not walk more than about 5 to 8 minutes from its home to its school. And moreover, it should not cross any major streets. There should be traffic, there should not be traffic, and also accessibility. Better and easier provision can affect learning in effect. Because the very stress of moving to the place of learning can affect its learning process. Then in the case of remotely located, this is where the provision comes. Remotely located places, you have a different way of teaching. You may use even high-tech because they are remotely inaccessible. By the time one creates infrastructure, it may be too late, it may take too long. So as in the case of site, there is a site that is satellite image integration in teaching. That was done by URL when the satellite was still in infancy. So they could beam the programs directly to the schools without the necessary infrastructure. So there are two options. One is that one can stick to the local medium and use local resources only, or have a combination where use the technology. The other analogy is the telemedicine today. That means how to reach to the distant and remote areas through telemedicine. You train one or two fellows to operate the computers and get the basic data, which will be transmitted to the fellow, the specialist sitting in the urban area, and they will have a talk, and then you will suggest the methods and ways to tackle that. That's been done by this our Devi Shetty hospital. Now that has become quite popular. Now that is another method to tackle this remotely located spaces. Now it can be compact and it can be informal also, so which can solve this problem to a very great extent, because by the time we create infrastructure, a long time would have elapsed. Go for that. Go fast. Informal learning methods in rural areas due to caste dominations and multi-purpose spaces. Temporary materials where students and teachers can build afresh structures every year. Now in the case of what we call rigid structures, you don't have money, and by the time the whole thing gets processed and done, it may take time. There is an analogy here also in the Valley School. In Valley School, the Krishnamurti's foundation, you see that the students build the classroom themselves. A classroom is almost like a thatched hut. So every batch of students they build before they leave the space, they demolish that and go temporary material. And again, when the fresh set of students come, they again build a small classroom for them. So that there is a participative mode by the children, so they learn by doing and they also enjoy doing it. And since they have done it, definitely they are comfortable in that. It's like this. When I wash my shirt, it appears brighter. Because since I have washed it, I think it looks not very brighter. But at least visually it appears brighter to me because I have done it. The sense of participation is important. So the participatory method of learning, you can bring it. There is also another thing called incremental model. Now other two models, one is incremental model. Incremental model means, there is something core which needs to be built and taken care of. A formal building, pakka materials. Then incremental, the other portion can be temporary, which can be removed, as and when it, maybe annually also. So the core portion may be all this library, some document administration, it may be just a couple of rooms. Rest of the area, you can use it, build using temporary materials, thereby it becomes a participatory mode of learning. So that is a very ideal thing, it's a nice, very appropriate thing in a rural context. May not be applicable to urban context. Our design propositions will have to vary from area to context, rural, urban and non-urban areas. Again, in the case of urban areas, designated sidewalks will have to be very carefully taken. The big problem in the next one, you can go, next cities. You see, in fact, there were so many things. Actually, in the sidewalk close to my place over here, supposed to be a well-developed area, right in front of Krishna Temple, Malaysian Krishna Temple, the dump like things. And how can people walk, especially in urban area? Children and older people cannot use the sidewalks effectively, thereby exposing them to all sorts of dangers. Okay, so all the dangers, and this is another thing that has to be taken into account when you are designing the children in urban areas. Then of course build spaces in case of urban, non-urban areas, local resources, local portion. The incremental model you can suggest, and then also you have this the core and the peripheral aspect in terms of design. What is needed you build, and what is required temporarily you keep on adding. The incremental model suggests that as and when you get money, you add something. Otherwise, make use of the space outside. For example, there was an attempt in Andhra Pradesh long time back. There was a cyclone. What happened was, they had built these cyclone shelters. Out of concrete in rural area. And what those people did was they put all the more important things in the concrete shelter inside, which they were supposed to use. And they built one more thatch structure around the concrete structure, and they started living there. See, it's irony. It's an irony that the designer has not understood the priorities of the people, and that is what exactly happened in this case also. And time and again, I can quote many instances of this inappropriateness in design approach to the specific problem. So this is one such problem. So we use whatever that is available there to the extent, and it can be improved. And in fact, I go to the extent of saying that we have a different syllabus for them in terms of what needs to be taught and how it's to be taught using the local resources. There are two people, one set of people in Madhya Pradesh, not putting it here, they won a design award for developing teaching aids and teaching methods for tribal children. It's something very nice, and there is also another place called Sutradhar in Bangalore, which designs toys, very inexpensive toys, which can be used by smaller children who do not have access to larger areas. So these are all permutations and combinations. That is multi-use of space. You see, all the walls and the floor is being simultaneously used. In fact, this is a classroom and NGO that lady is running in Bengaluru. See how effectively they are using the floor. So floor is then something very important for us as a resource, and which can perform so many things simultaneously, either linearly or parallelly or simultaneously. This is one such area. That means wherever it is possible for us to use it, let us use it. Let us not have a very rigid model of what an ideal classroom should be. There is nothing like ideal. What is required is what is appropriate. What is appropriate need not be ideal, and what is ideal need not be appropriate. Both cases are possible. So we are looking at an appropriate model that we can suggest. This is the way. Another one, you see, this is what you call sibling rivalry. Sibling rivalry that is required in the process of learning. Will not the psychological aspect will not dwell on that. That means how effectively they are using the flow. So you see that is not possible with formal furniture. So when we talk of both in urban areas and rural areas up to the age of 6 years, you allow the flow to be used in different and multiple ways, and these are all examples that are important. But see, safety and security are also important here up to the age of 6 years, because they can find, they can hurt themselves in so many different ways. So that is an important aspect. We will run through this again. More or less it's same. Extended informal spaces. So you see this. It's an effective way. So how we use the space is more important than how formal it is. And it's up to us. We decide. This is also, you see this, the dining space, and there is extended activity happening outside the classroom. So why can't we have this better coordination of mixing these two things in a way that can work? Quite difficult in urban areas. So you see, in fact, as per the education department and housing department, the standards are prescribed for minimal living areas and schooling areas, etc. But as you know how things work, because of lack of space, they try to put too many things in a very short space. That is the one. So this is other solution, not actually a solution, but other ways of tackling it. When there is nothing, this is better than this. So there, you see, actually there was a very nice saying that where does learning take place? It takes place everywhere. Everybody is a teacher, not the formal teacher alone. If somebody says you do it this way, it becomes a teacher. If somebody, you see something happening there, some mishap happens, and if the proper thing is done, that's a teacher. The situation is a teacher. So like that, we use all these spaces. They are essentially government schools, and you have this extended space, multifunctional and multi-use space. So we try to use them in different ways. So then how should the classroom be, either within an urban area or a rural area? Just mentioned in there. So typically we'll run through this and go through this. See, this is another one. The use of floor. In fact, this is from an urban scenario. And this is a very interesting thing, because there was traditional games. So we have so many traditional games, these are not actually, the next slide shows you the traditional game. This is a simpler one, you see, this is a traditional game. This is a traditional game, usually being played only in rural areas. We have the other types of, not other types, but not them here. So in fact, this is too sophisticated women are using it. Actually, this is a rural game. So there was a movement recently last week in Bangalore, I think 15 years back, where they were invited to participate in these rural sports. We got some different, that's called Adaguli Mane. It's that board. It used to be there and it used to be used usually by girls and others, women, especially in rural areas because they did not have access to any formal game. Now, all these are important. You have to understand the role of these games in the rural and urban areas. So in rural areas, the body contact games are much more, like kabaddi and group games are much more popular and they're seen. Whereas in the case of urban areas, the non-contact sports are much more clearly seen, like TT, table tennis, there is no contact at all. And even, for example, the basketball, there may be minimal contact, but otherwise it's not as close as in the case of kabaddi or football, etc. So you see, that is the urban phenomenon. So when you are suggesting something in the rural context, definitely you will have to keep those things in mind because they are unable to provide the sophisticated infrastructure we need for indoor stadium, indoor game, which takes a lot of problem. It creates a lot of problem in creating infrastructure. So then, of course, this psychological. You find that cognition is quite general in nature, comprehension, and then learning through primary sources. They learn by doing things because they don't have any labs, they don't have any sophisticated or opportunities to use formal things. By learning by doing things. Where in the case of urban area, it is opposite. That means it is all fed to them. The Hardy has seen as there was a joke. You can see American children. They don't know where they think the milk comes from some factory. They don't know there is something like cow. There is something like that, which produces the essential thing. Here, the urban child is so far removed from the reality, and it's all make-up world. So the urban child is exposed to videos, exposed to all the formal education without hands-on experience anywhere. That's one of the situation. And it is getting worse day by day because children are directly getting involved in using all these e-gadgets. So that is one, and of course use of colors, use of spaces and the proximity, that becomes quite important. Go to the next one. There is essentially navigation. Preschooler section. Again you divide that. You divide it into small groups of 4 to 5 and you can have multiple people tackling them. So that they can sit very close to the teacher in a very small intimate space so that it removes all the fears of anxiety and stress levels and they can open up. You have to design furniture in such a way that they can be manipulated. Suppose there is a circular table, you can make it into 4 quadrants and then if you want you can put them together. If you want to detach them you can detach and each quadrant becomes a small area for a group to sit together and work. And some games which generate that sense of hand holding and going together, usually in circles, because circle is the most popular way of space getting generated. When we have people, if you want to have a particular discussion, you normally circle. Use that idea in your design. And low level spaces and furniture, preferably all molded, preferably with without any sharp edges. Bright colors, again be careful because light colors, yellow is very bad. Yellow, because especially in India we don't give that sense of caution. Yellow has a lot of lead and lead especially is quite dangerous to preschoolers. Up to 4 years they should not get exposed to lead because they got sprained. And there's a famous person, I think most of us don't know, they are very well known, he's also on the national mission. It's called Tupil Venkatesh, the old doctor. He is the single man who has been fighting against this lead concentration especially in children. It shows many examples as to how this, we use it in our school buses and interiors also yellow color, and especially in India, there is a huge amount of lead component in there. Lead can cause in smaller children lack of brain development. In the older people, it can cause kidney problems. People will not know. It's a long drawn affair. In older people also, lead. In case of smaller children, even when they breathe or when they scratch the wall, the surface on which the yellow color is there, it can get ingested and it can enter through skin rather than through oral medium. So it is prohibited elsewhere in the world, but unfortunately in India it is still being allowed. Yesterday there was another piece of news, for example, this is directly connected to the design of furniture and implements which are not allergic. Because today children have a lot of allergies, problems. So when you suggest something, for example, even Barbie doll or any dolls, you have to check whether they have the sense of allergy component there. The design, the materials we use for furniture, the floor mattresses or for toys or clothes or whatever we use, we should also check to see that do not cause any allergies. The other important thing I was just reading 2 days back, that the wax crayons children use, instead they got asbestos. So the US, they're trying about it. After some research, they found out to use a small wax crayons we use, especially children. There is asbestos component in that, and it is creating problems. So anyway, so these are all things that one has to keep in mind when we talk of designing for youngsters, and that is especially preschoolers. It's at a low level, and even the other thing is the washroom should be always next to the preschoolers, the study area, the work area, along with this one, that is the medical chest, the medical cabinet, because you can hurt them so easily. And we also understand that children use the space invariably in different ways. They roll, they crawl, they fight with each other, they swing, they do all sort of things on the floor. We know that. So keep the floor clean and use such materials that are non-allergic. And first thing is simple floor. Keep it clean. Okay. In rural areas, we don't understand. They usually cover the open areas with cow dung. Cow dung is the best antidote for any, mosquitoes, against, it acts as a filtering agent to keep the dust down, as well as it doesn't allow the toxic things to enter. Be quite warm. You can sleep on the cow dung clean floor directly because it's quite soft and except the smell part of it. Except the smell part of it. Otherwise, it's one of the best things that can happen in rural areas. They have been doing it for ages. They don't have access to all these sophisticated medicines which come with a price, and this is the most easily available thing that is there. Even the coils we use essentially is cow dung. Those mosquito repellent coils are essentially cow dung. It's more sophisticated, that's all. So why don't you use the original material itself as it is? So that is one of the options that is given to us when we talk of designing for children in rural areas. Urban areas, okay, we'll still allow the, as we mentioned here, we can go further, and then use the floor in different ways. The other examples go further. This is a very interesting slide. It actually combines the most sophisticated with the most ultimate. I was telling you, isn't it? The floor, use of floor. I mean, the boy is asking, can I Alexa? Ask Alexa. You know what is Alexa? So is it too easy to do? You cannot do. He said, I want to talk to the robot. Alexa is a robot, a sophisticated robot who can talk back to you and respond to you like a human being. And he's asking, can I ask Alexa for a solution? Like our TV programs, isn't it? For the answer, you can ask somebody. Like that. You see, and the interesting part is, see, there's a sophisticated, you don't expect that sort of feature in the whole area. And that sort of, this thing. So it is a very interesting cartoon by Argentina in Times of India. It does very well. So you see that they are sitting on the floor and they still have pigtails and normal dresses like that. But of course, the situation is very sophisticated. It's a very interesting combination of both. That is very interesting to us because, this shows that floor is still the preferred area for most of the activities. And it's still very comfortable. They can sit in any way and move in any way. There's no restriction, unlike in the case of the furniture, and they can move around. It becomes flexible. The other one is in terms of nature and fauna. You can bring some pets inside the classroom. It's more easy in the case of rural areas because they are surrounded by a lot of such fauna, and it's quite easy to get them. Well, in urban areas, you have to make an attempt. Only such pets which are not, of course, they should be careful because they should not violate the forest law. You cannot bring everything. The other thing is this one. See, in this case, you can go further. So in this case, you see the personal care, the use of pets in the process of learning. How best you can explore it? It's left to the individual designer, and then it can be done. So in this case, you see the child is covering its ears because of the interpreted language the mother is using. So that creates unnecessary anxiety. So our aim is to create that sense of relaxed atmosphere, relaxed space for learning, so that this process of learning and through playing happens to enhance the capacity of the child. Okay. So that is the import of the So economics, we are talking about it. Same thing. Try to see that, especially in urban areas, even they don't give enough attention to ergonomics and design of furniture. There will be some sharp corners, poor finishing, and then flimsy materials that come out after some use. So that is equally important for the safety, security, and comfort of the child. In rural areas, of course, there is not much problem. The urban areas only, since we are going for planned and design furniture, these problems also simultaneously parallelly crop around this. So this is important. That is, when we talk of extended play areas, that is like sand pit play area. Again, you have to design in such a way that there is adult supervision when the children are in front. The other ones are there for usual stuff, and the other play materials. The height is important. That is, up to 6 years, it will be around 3 feet, and up to 9 years, it will be around 3.9. So up to 12 years, furniture size and height will be significant. It's like variance. So these are all what we call the use of comfortable floor. These are board games, you see. So there can be comfortable seating, 2-seaters, 3-seaters. The other one, last one is of course against opponents. Very nice. This is actually a competition in Bengaluru last week. So they have play equipment which can be accommodated right on the laps. They can sit anywhere, play anywhere. The other one also is carrom board. These are all materials that can be used for colorful, flow-bound, colorful, extensive use of floor and horizontal movement. There is hardly any vertical movement because there is more to be quite risky. Okay, I think so this is a small note for, of course, we are not tackling this groups. This is a very general note. Deaf children, the group on an average will be a year behind normal children, as per the research. Similarly, blind children will be behind normal children by about 4 years in learning. It takes so much time. Then seriously retarded children will be much lower in all cases, right? That even the researcher finding. Combination of deaf and blind aspects create problems. As they cannot speak, also due to these two defects. They need to be taught and trained through touch, smell, and physical sensation. There is a nice thesis project from the girl had done recently in one of the colleges. And this is something deaf and blind, something which is very important. There's spastic children, they're normal in every other way except that muscle movement, and they have to be taken care of specially. Essentially use of ramps, barrier-free design, personal and social spaces, floors and walls with safety measures. Example, tiles, grab bars, handrails, and maneuverable chairs can push and then arrange it, stack it, and free the space for different types of activities or desirable. Open but flexible spaces which add warmth to things they use. Example, chairs, cars, and also electronically developed gadgets can make their life better so that they can also add value to society. So ultimately, to bring this to the talk to the close, the ultimate intention is, when we talk of design, three factors predominate, that is safety, security and comfort.